The evolution of real estate and the road to fair housing. A growing nation faces new challenges. As the United States entered the 19th century, it was still a young nation finding its place in the world. The country experienced rapid growth, territorial expansion, international conflicts such as the War of 1812, westward migration, and enormous economic change. At the same time, America continued struggling with issues of equality, citizenship, and civil rights. Although the Reconstruction Amendments had abolished slavery, established citizenship, and protected voting rights, many Americans, particularly Black Americans, continued to face significant barriers in employment, education, voting, and housing. Legal rights had expanded, but equal opportunity had not yet become reality. The early real estate industry. By the late 1800s, buying and selling real estate had become increasingly common. Unfortunately, the profession had developed a poor reputation. Because licensing laws did not yet exist, almost anyone could call themselves a real estate agent. Unscrupulous individuals frequently took advantage of buyers and sellers through fraud, deceptive sales practices, and dishonest transactions. Newspapers often reported stories of families, widows, and inexperienced property owners losing their homes or land through unethical conduct. Public trust in the real estate profession was low. A profession begins to organize. Following the devastating 1906 San Francisco earthquake, real estate professionals from around the country recognized the need for greater professionalism and ethical standards. In 1908, approximately 120 real estate professionals met in Chicago to establish the National Association of Real Estate Exchanges, or NARAE. Their mission was simple: improve the reputation of the profession, promote ethical business practices, increase consumer confidence, create professional standards. Although fair housing was not yet part of the conversation, this meeting marked the beginning of organized professionalism in real estate. The realtor name. As the profession continued to mature, Michigan real estate broker Charles N. Chatborn introduced the term realtor in 1916. The association later became known as the National Association of Real Estate Boards, NAREB, before adopting its current name, the National Association of Realtors, NAR, in 1972. Today, realtor is a federally registered membership mark identifying members who agree to follow the Realtor Code of Ethics. An honest look at our history. Like much of the country, the real estate profession has experienced periods of both progress and failure. Early versions of the Realtor Code of Ethics focused primarily on professionalism between brokers and protecting consumers from fraud. Unfortunately, they did not initially address housing discrimination. In fact, during the 1920s, portions of the Code of Ethics reflected many of the discriminatory attitudes that were common throughout society at the time. Those provisions encouraged practices that today would clearly violate federal fair housing laws. It is important to acknowledge this history, not to judge previous generations by today's standards, but to understand why the profession eventually embraced fair housing as one of its highest ethical responsibilities. Over time, those discriminatory provisions were eliminated, and the Code of Ethics evolved into one of the strongest professional commitments to equal housing opportunity. The Great Depression changes housing. The stock market crash of 1929 devastated the American economy. Millions lost their jobs, banks failed, homeowners struggled to make mortgage payments, foreclosures became widespread. To stabilize the housing market, Congress introduced several programs that permanently changed American real estate finance. The Federal Home Loan Bank System improved liquidity for lenders. The Homeowners Loan Corporation refinanced struggling homeowners. The National Housing Act of 1934 created the Federal Housing Administration, making home financing more accessible through federally insured loans. In 1938, Congress created the Federal National Mortgage Association, helping establish a secondary mortgage market that continues today. These programs dramatically expanded homeownership opportunities, but they also exposed inequalities in how housing opportunities were made available to different communities. As we'll learn later in this course, some lending and neighborhood practices developed during this era eventually became the subject of significant fair housing reforms. Learning from history, history is not always comfortable. The real estate profession, like the nation itself, has evolved over time. Understanding both the accomplishments and mistakes of our industry's past allows today's licensees to better appreciate the importance of equal professional service. Today's Arizona real estate professionals are expected to provide every consumer with the same level of honesty, professionalism, and respect, regardless of any protected characteristic. That commitment represents one of the greatest improvements our profession has made over the past century. Broker tip: Consumers rarely remember every detail of a transaction, but they always remember how they were treated. Consistency, professionalism, and equal service are some of the most effective ways to build trust while reducing fair housing risk. Online discussion question: why did real estate professionals decide to create a National Professional Association in 1908? Answer: the profession lacked licensing laws and ethical standards, resulting in widespread fraud and a poor public reputation. Creating a national association helped establish professionalism and consumer confidence. Question: why is it important to acknowledge the real estate industry's history regarding discrimination? Answer: understanding the profession's past helps explain why fair housing laws and the Realtor Code of Ethics continue to emphasize equal treatment and non-discrimination today. Question: how did federal housing programs developed during the Great Depression permanently change real estate? Answer: programs such as the FHA, HOLC, and Fannie Mae expanded access to mortgage financing, stabilized the housing market, and created many of the lending systems still used today.